Budget Committee for Wednesday, May 13th to order. And do we have any committee business?
Just that I will remind the committee that the mics are very sensitive on the table. So rustling of papers, we heard some feedback after the last meeting that just they hear a lot when we're moving around. So we can try and sit still, sorry.
So pen clicker.
And that we do have, as you notice, there's a few of us at the table. So we do have some excused absences. Commissioner Farr and Commissioner Seneca had a prior commitment, and Sarah Means as well. And then we do have Jared online. That is
Okay.
committee business.
So Mary, I think it's your show.
Great, thank you. So I'm Mary Buxit Schaefer. I'm the Assessor Tax Collector of Lane County. I feel like standing today. I've had a lot of caffeine. And I am a countywide elected official. I'm in my third year of my 4-year term, my first. And this is the brain trust behind you. These are most of the management team for assessment and taxation. So thank you for having me, Chair. And who's Vice Chair?
Jared on the screen.
Jared. Thanks, Jared. I can't see you, but thank you. Nice to meet you. So, without further ado, so the department overview is we are in charge of property taxes, the valuation, collection, and distribution of all the property tax revenue in the entire county. So, from the Cascades to the southern part of Yachats. And we have 3 divisions: administration, property tax management, and appraisal. This is how the property tax dollars were distributed for 25-26. This changes every year a little bit, but usually Lane County is about 11 to 12 cents on every dollar collected is what we retain, and the rest is distributed to 85 different taxing districts, so schools, city, fire, water, libraries. Stop me if you have questions, and actually I'm going to take this off so it doesn't, that's much brighter. Okay. So this is our asset overview from 26-27. We certified a tax roll with 102.7 billion in real market value. We have had 44 billion in taxable value. We certified 746 million in taxes. 54.5 million of that went to the county general fund, so about 32.5%, and 37 million to non-discretionary county funds like the local options for public safety and the parks local option. So this is our department overview for current and then 26, 27. So this is money in and out, essentially. Our percent of change for our discretionary general fund is, total resources is 3.63, but this is the total change. And I wanted to point out, this transfer in, the 40,000 of transfer in, is we have a software replacement fund that's been rolling over each year, so we transfer in $40,000, and that is to help with, we contract out with some additional support for our software, because it's old and needs to be upgraded, which we are currently working on. And then this 60,732 is transfers out back into the general fund because we did a safety, customer service safety upgrade project. So we didn't use all the money, which is surprising, that we were allocated to use. So it went back into the general fund. And we have 46.8 FTE. So our bottom line this year is $9.2 million in total required funds to stay doing what we're doing. So let's see, our resources is primarily general fund. We get some revenue from the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Grant, so that's through the state of Oregon. And then other penalties and fees come in also, so application fees for exemptions and things like that. And late filing penalties, but it's primarily general fund and the CAFA grant. So the CAFA grant, and Jared, this is honestly mainly for you because I know that you're new to this process. So the CAFA grant was established in 1989, and it was created to fund 30 to 40% of county costs statewide. It is a pool of money that has funding sources that include recording fees and delinquent interest on unpaid property taxes. Well, I guess when they're paid, then that interest goes into this fund. And then at the inception of CAFA, there was also a state general fund contribution of $5 million, which went away in between 2009 and 2011. The problem with CAFA is that the recording fees were not indexed to keep up with inflation. So the CAFA fund retains $9 on every recorded document. Things such as warranty deeds, quitclaim deeds. So it feeds that pool of money, and then we apply to receive some of those funds. We apply every year to the Oregon Department of Revenue. And then they say, yes, you qualify, or no, you don't. I think we've always qualified. So we anticipate for 26, 27, an increase to $1.1 million in revenue from the CAFA grant. It just doesn't keep up with expenses, but this year for 25, 26, we budgeted about $1 million. So it's interesting because, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but the market really impacts those recording fees, and that is how the CAFA grant is mainly funded. So there was a new Fed chair. He's being sworn in as we speak. So we'll see what happens with interest rates and the real estate market based on that. Fuel prices, consumer confidence, all of those things go into these CAFA funds. They're all factors when we look at our budget and we're trying to estimate revenue. So, and then penalties and fees, we expect about $633,000 from foreclosure, late filing, and tax penalty fees. And then again, that $40,000 from the internal transfer fund. Questions about that? Anything that I've presented? Okay. I am just going to. I might add that I'm going to add that I think I skipped this on slide 4, that the proposed revenue estimate for property taxes into the general fund for 26-27 is $56.3 million. So every year we work with districts to say how much revenue are we anticipating, and it is things like what's happening in the market. We look at permits. We look at what properties are going into or out of exemption, enterprise zone, how many appeals we have. All of that impacts the amount of revenue we try and estimate. And Christine and I, we go back and forth, and then we go to war with Iran, and I could change that. So, it's all very dependent on market factors. So, and also the base of the property tax asset growing, which it usually does. So, and every year the Oregon Department of Revenue puts out how many FTE, full-time equivalent, we should have based on our county size, the amount of accounts we have, the complexity of those accounts. And from our comparator counties, we are down here, we should have 76.5 FTE. This is based on 25-26 numbers. The 26-27 hasn't been quite updated yet. But because we've increased in account size, I think this number is going up to 77 FTE, but we'll just, for the sake of this conversation, we'll keep it at 76.5. So we are at 61% of the recommended FTE for what we do in a county our size. This is, if you think about the sheriff's office and the DA, all of these departments have sort of the baseline, right? And it's probably not a surprise that we are all below what is even adequate. So I wouldn't even call our staffing level adequate, though we are exceptional, but we are not adequate in numbers. So Deschutes County, as you all probably know, we share a permanent rate that's the same, but they also have another district for their public safety, so that doesn't come out of the general fund. So, and then some of our northern counties, they're over. Washington County is at 108% of the recommended FTE. So, yeah, they have a very high permanent rate. So, questions? Yes.
So we've been doing studying in public safety of what it would cost to fill the gap to get our FTE to a more close to standard rate. So do we have that for A&T?
That's a great question, Commissioner Trieger, and I used to think it was only FTE. This last year we did a pilot project with C3 AI, and I now know that gap is FTE and technology. So what we are doing right now is we are focused on software replacement. So once we get our software out of the 90s and into a more modern system, we will gain some efficiencies. And at that point, we can look at partnering with an AI. There's some of the software vendors, we've seen 3 demos from software vendors, and AI is either on deck or integrated. So we will have options. We can't partner with C3 AI at this point because we need modern software to do that. So it was a nice peek into what it could do and its capabilities. We know it's coming. But I can get you a rough estimate. I can work with Christine on, numbers, space, that type of thing, because it's more than just FTE, right? It's cars, it's, do we have to expand our space? It's computers, it's, all of that. So, but I can absolutely work on that.
Not for this cycle, but for the next one, it'd be good to start thinking in terms of dollar amounts as well as just, if it's more than just FTE, then understanding what is it, what would it take for the organization to get to, to close that gap by half, to close that gap all the way, what some of those different scenarios are, because that's a more tangible, functional thing to shoot for.
Yes, and I had those numbers last year, but they're not updated for this year, so I can get those. I'll get those to the. Should I email you, Christine, and then we'll reach? Okay, great, thank you.
And then even what if there are going to be efficiencies realized, like surely is that even going to appear when the disparity is that great between what we should have and what we do have? I'm sure your folks, you will feel it, but will it really even appear in terms of where we are functionally relative to where Department of Revenue recommends we be?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I had a question. You mentioned modernizing the technology system, which I know is in process, but can you remind me, I know that's a years-long process, where we're at and sort of just where we're at in that?
Yeah, we are sort of 2 solid years into a multi-year software modernization project where we partnered with Clackamas County, Wasco, and Yamhill County, and because we're all in the same software system, which was created in the 1990s. It was implemented in Lane County in 1999. So fast forward to now, we have completed the demos. We did that in April, and now we're moving into the scoring, reference checks, and then we'll move into contract negotiations. I'll come before the board and, ask for the authority, to be able to move into a contract and then secure funding. And I've been in conversations with Christine and Greg Holmes to talk about, what kind of commercial loan is that going to be, bond or, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Beck?
That was my question too.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so current year budget changes. The COLAs, rep and non-rep, are, those impacted our budget. And then also we did a reclassification of 3 positions. We have a higher level of expertise needed in these 3 areas, in these 3 positions, so we were able to successfully reclass those 3 positions. And then also with that revenue of the reclass of the 3 positions and the COLAs, to sort of offset that, we had an increase in revenue. One was a $10,000 administration fee for our first strategic investment program with Sierra Pacific, and then $10,785 for the administration of the new Cottage Grove Urban Renewal District. So that is over 500 tax lots that we're setting up the Urban Renewal District, making sure that all of the tax rates are reflective of those changes. And just so you know, the administration fee for the Urban Renewal District, prior to October of 2024, that would have been a function that we would have just done without a fee. So in October of 2024, we went before Finance and Audit, presented a fee proposal. It was passed by the board and implemented, and then, so because of that, we're being compensated for a tiny portion of the work that we're doing with that project, but that is one-time fee, and it does help at the end of the day. So, and then our CAFA revenue is actually about $48,000, $50,000. We're estimating greater than what we budgeted for. So that will go back into the general fund. So again, that estimating is always an interesting process, but better above than below. So let's see, for 26, 27, the discretionary general funds. So when we did the fee proposal in 2024, we were modest. We wanted to make sure that the fee increases that we proposed and that impacted the different, consumers of our services. What were we going to get feedback? Did we get feedback? That type of thing. And now we're trying to expand that. So we have looked at what other counties are doing with subdivisions, partition plats, condominiums. So how are they processing these actions that directly benefit the districts, but all of the administration falls on assessment and taxation? So on May 21st, so next week, I'm going to go before Finance and Audit and present a new fee proposal. And then hopefully they will say, yes, you can proceed to the board. I will come to the board and lay out the details of that proposal, and then the board will decide if we can move forward with that fee proposal that would go into effect July 1st. And we estimate that to generate between $35,000 and $45,000 in revenue for 26-27. And that's a conservative estimate. I never like to overestimate, so questions about that? One thing we are careful not to do is to impact the veterans and the senior deferral applications. So we're not proposing an increase in those application fees, but rather for large developers that can maybe absorb those costs a little bit easier than the single family property owner could. So, and then our vacancy variance, due to the structural deficit in the general fund, we are increasing our vacancy variance from the initial direction of 5% to 6%, which equals $419,000. And that is to maintain our current service level. We're hoping to, make up that variance with, not filling positions, vacant positions, leaving them open a little bit longer. Hopefully, if the new fee proposal passes, that will offset some of the costs. Those types of things.
Question, and for Jared's reference too, so we collect and then redistribute for 85 special districts, but we take no administrative fee for doing that.
Mhm.
So it's a service we're providing for free to our special districts. So I wanted to make sure Jared knew that as
Yeah.
preface for my question. It's been a priority of the Association of Oregon Counties statewide to address that. I assume we are prohibited from doing that ourselves just for Lane County
Correct.
by state statute, by legislation?
Yeah.
Is it Department of Revenue statute or was there a bill? Where does that
I think it is
live?
in statute
Mhm.
that we work on behalf of the district, so that the administration of assessment and taxation is a county function, and that is that's kind of the contention when we get into legislative sessions with districts that don't necessarily think that they should pay for the services of assessment and taxation, that it should remain solely as a county function.
But we're preempted from doing basically what you're proposing here to do with, as a fee for, what's the difference? How can we put this fee in place for like the urban renewal districts and so on when we can't for our other special districts?
So that's a really good question, and this is, I suppose that because it's not a direct fee to those districts, it's not like City of Eugene, we're not billing the City of Eugene for the administration of this property tax system. We are imposing a fee on recorded subdivisions for us to process those.
So it's one time, we're not collecting it
Correct.
ongoing, right?
It's not an ongoing fee, it's a one-time administrative fee. And it's similar to the Sierra Pacific, that one-time funding. It's to set up a system so that we can implement this program that the board adopted. Yeah, and implemented. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, Mary, and the jobs that you're holding from the 5 to 6%, is that what we're looking at, that bar graph, that's approximately
2.5 FTE.
just 2.5 FTE? So it's not like the 30 jobs that graph shows that you're short?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about 2.5 FTE.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so these are changes from 26-27 that we are budgeting for. Again, COLAs for reps and non-reps. And then materials and services. I know that the first two line items are not, the percentages is 29% growth, but the amount that grew is not, it's not huge, but it all adds up. So, and it's over the 2.5% growth allocated for materials and services. So I just wanted to call those things out because they're pretty, when you look at them on paper, it's like 29%. What was that? So our association dues grew, our software licenses, so Adobe, Acrobat, and then our ArcGIS also grew. because those used to be in technology services and have in the last 2 years been shifted over to the departments, and the ArcGIS is a fee that is an expense that we split between Public Works, and our share is about 21,000 of that. So that's a newer expense for us. And then our software maintenance agreement grew by 6.6%. Okay. Like I said, we are 3 divisions administration, and that is 2.8 FTE, and this 291,000 is dollars that goes back into the general fund. It is merely accounting, essentially. The CAFA revenue that comes in is a line item in this division's spreadsheet, so that is, it's what goes back into the general fund. If you break it down by expenses and then revenue. And so operational oversight, budget, personnel, intergovernmental partnerships, public information, and our website and DOR compliance is sort of the high level of what the administration division does in assessment taxation. And timely certification of the tax roll, stabilize and index funding. So stabilize index funding, OSATCA leadership legislation, they're all sort of combined, if you will. This year I'm the vice president of the Association of Assessors and Tax Collectors. Next year I'll be the president, and that just coincides with the long session. So it seems like a long runway right now to work on legislative initiatives that can help fill this gap of CAFA funding, but it's not, because legislative concepts are due in the fall if we want, bills written before they drop, and the session opens in January. So we are working. I'm actually the co-liaison and will be the liaison to AOC. So the Association of Oregon Counties for, and one of their priorities is also stabilize and index funding for assessment taxation, because we are not the only county that has this issue. It is statewide. So, and one thing that I'm actively doing is trying to work with districts. And I say I, but it's a we. We work with fire districts, we work with fire chiefs, we work with cities. Districts come to us when they're preparing their budgets, and we actually are building a levy estimator. So if there is, we had a levy estimator, and we're just making it a little bit better, a little bit more robust. So if a district wants to, pass a local option, or even wants to, how much revenue could they get if they had this rate, or if there was a bond, or if we want to combine districts. The public safety conversation has, there's been a lot of talk of combining some of the rural districts. So if we combine those districts and then had a rate, what would that be? So this tool that we're building can do that quickly, and also can look at compression, so compression loss, and then also delineates what districts lose most in compression, and then, lose it all in compression, and then goes down and calculates that. So it's great. Property tax management is the division responsible for maintaining accurate and current records. We process all of the ownership changes, so the deeds that are recorded, we process subdivisions, partition plats, exemption applications, updating the cadastral maps, applying special assessments, billing and collections and distribution. So property tax management has 23 FTE, it's $4.3 million, and let's see, they do all of this. It's so much, it's hard to really boil it down into just a few things. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about all of these divisions and our work on House Bill 3940 in a minute. These are some key initiatives of property tax management this year. So implementation of These are directly related, 3940 and Senate Bill 1068 to fire patrol and uncovered parcels, or covered parcels that need modification throughout the county. And then the District Formation Resource Group, we're trying to expand collection efforts. This last year, we also, we made Apple Pay and Google Pay available for people, so we're trying to make payments more convenient for our customers. And as a department, we adopted a strategic plan, and we're using GIS change detection. We're testing that to see if we can, how we can better utilize our aerial photography to see if there's been changes that we don't yet have on the tax roll. And of course, a new urban renewal district. Yeah. So appraisal. Our appraisal division ensures that all property is valued and assessed at 100% of its real market value. Our assessment date, so let me paint the picture. Our assessment date is January 1st, 2026, and it is what is on the dirt as of that date. And what we do is our sales data analysts look at all the sales in 2025, and that moves real market value. So the tax bill that comes out in the fall of 2026 reflects what happened in the market in 2025. So it's, we're always kind of looking back, which gets a little tricky when you're looking at CAFA and you're trying to estimate forward. So yeah, we're always in multiple tax years and fiscal years and calendar years and all the years. So this is, appraisal is, they do real and personal property valuations, specially assessed values, inspections, Measure 50 calculations, appeals, ratio report, to name a few things. And this last year we did 4,800 property inspections, reappraisal, 245 appeals. We have an in-house app for application. It's an inspection tracker. We had one. We're trying to upgrade it to make it more robust. And we have to utilize and pull in all 12 cities for all of their building permits, and that then creates workflow for our property appraisers to go out and inspect properties. And then it gives our manager and supervisor the ability to assign work, track work, those types of things. And then also GIS change detection. Personal property outreach project, we do a lot of onboarding and training. And move on. Okay, so service changes to occur in 26, 27. So we do all of that. And then the legislation passes a new bill, or multiple new bills. And House Bill 3940, it's doing a lot of things. So it increased the property size threshold for fire patrol assessment from improved properties from 5 acres, over 5 acres to those over 10 acres. And that's one of the main things it did. It did a lot of other things. But I want to harken back to something Steve said last week in the budget message and public hearing that is also true for A&T. We are disciplined and intentional with our resources, and the administration of this House bill is one of those examples. There is more work to be done than there's available resource, right? So we have to figure out what we're not going to do. And this House bill created hundreds of hours of work for us so far to date, and we're not done. We're actually just beginning. So we had to do a manual reevaluation of over 19,000 tax accounts, which is about, well, it's over 11,000 properties. And basically, we had to go through and identify categories of changes because all of these properties are a little bit different. So there's 15,000 changes required. We have been able to partner with TS and our vendor to automate some of those changes. So we have interim changes. We have 3,000 interim changes, which means that they're interim for this next tax year so that the fire districts can, we can generate that revenue for them, but we have to revisit those accounts to actually merge them together, and now they're just gonna be two separate tax statements with the same district levy items on them. So that might be more information that you want, but, and then we have over 6,000 specially assessed accounts that will not be processed this year. And
Mary, sorry.
I'm told that Jared has his hand up.
Hi,
so
Jared.
I'm not
Oh,
sure if
perfect,
it was.
okay.
Yeah.
There. Sorry, I didn't know if I should just do that or jump in when you're talking, so.
please,
I have a question on the 4,800 property inspections. So, in a perfect world, you do the property inspections and that should probably increase values and, find things that should have been taxed and so on and so forth. How many of those how far behind, based on staffing, are you on those?
thank you, that's a great
Ready?
question. We are, did somebody else have a question?
No, I said, are you ready?
No. So, how far back do I go? That's a great question. And when Measure 50 was passed in 1996, 97, it did away with the 6-year reappraisal cycle. So it replaced the reappraisal cycle with Measure 50 exception value and exception events. So in order for us to be in good standing with the Oregon Department of Revenue, we have to prove that we inspect on, we are at 100% of real market value, which means that we inspect on the Measure 50 exception event permits. So as we are not behind on those. So we go out on permits or sales, and that we certify every year that we are at 100% of real market value. So now we are, the standard went away for the 6-year reappraisal cycle with Measure 50. So what we are sort of air quotes behind on unofficially is having boots on the ground on every property in Lane County. So we haven't been to about 35% of residential properties in 20 to 30 years. So that gets to your question. So we're not behind on permits. We do go through and we have to vet the permits and figure out if an electrical permit is a full kitchen remodel or if it's replacing the electrical panel. So, but yeah, we're up to date on those permits.
Okay. I kind of have a follow-up question. Like, if you went from 4,800 to 9,600. Obviously, that would have, I don't know what the average is on increase in price, but that would have an increase in overall revenue. I know it's a cause and effect. If you down 40 employees, you can't really do more inspections. But I'm assuming that's kind of where the software comes in, and maybe you could give a little guidance on if you're going to the board in the next month for implementation. I mean, we're talking that might hit January of 2029 before it starts, or you collect those in January or November of 2029. I mean, when would that? What kind of lift are you trying to get out of that? I realize it'll be more than just.
Yeah. For clarification, are you asking about the software upgrades?
Well, I'm assuming that the software upgrades is to make it more efficient, so you can, inspect more properties and give your staff the ability to probably use technology a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working on a system that's 35 or 40 years old, so I'm just trying to understand what would the future look like
Okay.
once the software is implemented?
Yeah, great question. I can give you some examples of that. So currently, our current process for personal property, business personal property accounts is that we mail out business personal property returns to every business owner that we have on record in Lane County, and they, with their equipment lists, which is reportable. So they update their equipment lists, send back these equipment lists, and we go in and do manual entry into the system, which, because of House Bill 3940, we're currently behind on, and I'll get to in a minute. But with all three vendors that we looked at, there is e-filing for business personal property. So we send a postcard or a letter and say, here's your QR code. It ties into their equipment list and they update it online. They can update it, save it, walk away, come back, finish it, send it, just, say, I've updated it, and then our system automatically pulls that information in. So, I mean, that is months and months and months of manual data entry and saves postage. So that is one example of an efficiency just out of the gate that we will gain by getting a new software system. I have more examples,
Yeah.
so many more.
That kind of helps.
Yeah.
Thank you for that more color. I'm just kind of wondering, obviously, the sooner that's implemented, the better it will be for your department.
Yeah.
When will you, if you get approval to do it, are you thinking that will help in this cycle or next year or when?
What I know is that we have millions of lines of data, and it depends on what vendor we go with, because two vendors are not Oregon compliant, though they have products in Oregon. The product that they propose to us is not Oregon compliant. And we have one vendor that is Oregon compliant. It really depends on when we go into contract and when we start the conversion. So I said that we're 2 years into a multi-year process. Multi-year is probably 4 or 5 years at best. So one thing I know about government is that it does not move quickly. And I think for a software conversion of this magnitude that has impacts countywide, we have to be very diligent and methodical about how we convert, because we're dealing with people's property and their money, and so we want to make sure that we get it right the first time, and not have to have damage control, press release, and districts rely on this money that we then collect and distribute. So we are not in a hurry. Although we do understand that there is an urgency for this, we're trying to be very systematic about these changes. So,
Thank you.
yes. Okay. So to date, I just wanted to add that to date we have made 4,608 account changes that are completed, and so we didn't have hundreds of hours of FTE, for this project or for this House bill. And so currently we're 12 days behind in processing deeds for ownership changes. This is increasing our calls to public information. Folks are asking why our records and then subsequently our LID records are not updated, because they look at that. They want to see that, they sort of glean validity of signing a deed and having it recorded to our records. So that's increasing our phone calls. Our personal property data entry is behind. We are offering overtime for catch up on that. 100 exemption applications are waiting to be processed. And technology services resources are prioritized to really get as many accounts updated for House Bill 3940. So we're pausing on the inspection tracker upgrade and the levy estimator so that we can get the majority of this work done. And then we're also going to have to offer overtime for subdivision, partition plats, lot lines, and merges for the processing of those, because we've had to pull people off of those, regular tasks. Every year we estimate, we budget for overtime, but, part of being very deliberate is then also watching, how much money we're spending in overtime, right? And saying, okay, gosh, do we pull back? Do we, where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck? What we want to avoid is a backlog. So those are something we are trying to avoid. So let's see. And House Bill 3940 is not the only bill. We have Senate Bill 1068. The commissioners heard the update yesterday from District Forester Klein and then also Charlie Conrad. We are working with Mr. Conrad on 3940 and then 1068, just to, really make sure that the processing of these bills and the implementation is succinct across all the county divisions or departments. We are also, the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund passed, and there's changes to that coming. And then I think we're gonna seek technical clarity maybe in the long session to be able to implement that. So every year there's hundreds of bills that drop, and our lobbyist works with AOC's lobbyists to make sure that, anything that has to do with property taxes that we vet and then, look at the fiscal impact, the financial impact, and can we administer it? And if not, then what changes need to be made? How much time do I have? Oh, a couple minutes? Okay, so software replacement, I went over a lot of this. Legislation, so one thing that I want to call your attention to for the long session in 2027 is we are currently partnering with the Legislative Revenue Office at the state of Oregon to do an ROI study for assessment and taxation statewide. So it is in order to get all of the districts and all of the lobbyists on board, we needed a third-party neutral party to be able to say, this is, assessment, the assessors and tax collectors are correct. There is money being left on the table, and they're doing an analysis to estimate how much that revenue could be statewide. So we're looking forward to that study coming out. And then the partnerships with AOC and the Osaka leadership. I think. Huh. Questions?
Any other questions from Mary? Is there a criteria for physical inspection? You said there's like 30 or 35% that are not, or are years behind, I mean? Are they on the table to be looked at or not? Not necessarily. Probably didn't ask that very well.
Outside of inspections and outlier sales, we do hotspot reappraisals. So it's change detection right now, looking at aerial photography against our records. If we, from that project, if we can determine that this area is really out of date, if the inventory we have in our records is out of date with what we think we see from these aerials, we will do a reappraisal effort in that area.
Okay.
So, Cresswell, Cottage Grove, Junction City, it's looking like those areas probably could use a reappraisal. Yeah.
Anything else from Murray? Thank you.
Great, that's it?
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen.
I heard that last year. Said they're working on that. That's it. It's gotta be huge.
To the LGAC or
And then
different?
to LGAC.
So
That's
that's last
I don't
year
know.
or
No,
referred this?
just
Baby steps.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. So I don't know if the ROI
I
study
don't.
can Tiffany's interested in.
Greg, want me to get you some?
No, I'm good. I got a cookie, coffee, and water.
All right.
I think I'm set.
All right, you just need a pail.
I don't have to move at all.
You need to get in front of us, which any of the special districts might get to them first.
Here, there's 3 at the table, so you might have to swap. Yeah.
I'm supposed to
I'm
probably
last, so
into
let me
the
step
field
away.
this summer. Uneven ground in eastern
I
Oregon,
lost.
so that may be off.
I think.
Hiking across the desert.
Get a motocross or a scooter, you need one. That wouldn't work either.
No, some places it's all rock and dust.
You'll be able to have
You
that
know,
too,
You know what eastern Oregon's
Hey,
like.
stranger.
Yeah, looks like a rock and you trip on it, it's a good cow turf.
Are you okay?
How's the new,
Yeah.
return to the old, I guess.
Hey,
I feel like we're
Dr.
missing,
Schumacher?
I feel like we're missing people.
Yeah.
Just a few. It's Senator Warren.
Senator Warren.
That was the confusion.
There you go.
I get that one off.
Not just,
I was like, there's nothing Senator.
I always just shoo you.
Yep, that's people who know me. It's all well.
No, I was just gonna ask.
I think it looks good.
There's some right outside.
Oh, I know, right over on the other side of that wall.
Oh,
Need and want are two different things.
um. That was 1.504. The increase that we
The
voted
meeting's
on.
still going.
This is what was,
We're live.
no.
No.
And it's a weird, the 5 and Christine can explain it, it's very complex, but we get
There's not one schedule anywhere.
70% of
No break schedule.
cities get some.
It's a short
It's a short meeting,
Down.
but everybody seems to have taken a break.
Yes, we could have
I love
moved in
that.
between.
And we did this, we took into account the region and where we are, we're not pricing people.
I think you're still on air.
Can you just go ahead then?
They've already cleaned it up once.
All right. Dan, welcome back.
All right, Chair Weber, good to see you again. Sorry you have to hear from me 2 days in a row.
No, that was great.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have more distressed funds to talk about. Just saying, this is our distressed managers club. So, so thanks for all the time yesterday, stressed and distressed. So, yeah, thank you for your time yesterday on waste management. Sorry we had to spend so much time on that. But we have 4 more divisions that are depending on distressed funds. So unfortunately, it's going to be mostly unfortunate news. There are some bright spots with our parks levy that hopefully Brett will lift the room a little bit with. But I have one overview slide to go through with you, and then each of the division managers will take 10 minutes so that we can have some question and answer at the end. All right, where then?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That was fast.
Good job.
Got the mouse back there.
Sorry.
Of course.
It happened yesterday.
Right.
Right. Oh. There we go. Okay. All right, so I'm here with Keir Miller for Land Management, Brett Henry of Parks, Sasha Vartanian with Engineering and Construction Services, and Oren Schumacher with Road and Bridge Maintenance, which those two share the road fund along with our administrative services. We've already talked about waste management. Land Event Center is doing pretty well, and general services as well. Our internal fund, that general services is our fleet and animal services. It's an odd combination, but they make it work. All right, so I just have one overview slide for you, and thank you for our budget folks that helped put these things together and all the work that goes behind the scenes to get to these summary numbers. You have all the details in your packets there. And this is Paula Davis, who leads our budget team at Public Works. So I won't go into the details of that. I will just say that these summary numbers are a little confusing in that there are pluses and negatives that add to the summary that kind of obscure what's going on in some cases here. So for revenue, it looks like we have a great thing there, a 21% increase. That is because of the bond for Clean Lane, which is budgeted in there. Taking that out, we're actually looking at a $5 million decrease in revenue. And that's about $2 million in the road fund, $2 million in waste management, $700 in parks, and $565,000 in the land management division. So that's how that shakes out for that summary number. Transfers in and transfers out, a similar situation. We have some big movements between funds, and so I'll just highlight a few of those. We have $4.6 million coming from Secure Rural Schools into our Territorial Highway Fund. We have a specific fund for that. And then from Territorial, we have $1.7 million going out to capital projects in our Engineering Construction Services division, and an additional, I don't have them not in front of me, enough to support 6 FTE in our road maintenance division. So we support an ongoing 6 FTE due to the large scale of needs on Territorial Highway and trying to support the broader system through tapping that fund. And then that fund is receiving interest to the point of 1.1 million. And so that's covering a lot of the withdrawal for the capital projects from that fund. For discretionary general fund, we don't receive a lot of general fund in Public Works. The only areas in our animal services section, which is within our general services division. So we have made a 3% decrease in there at the request of county administration. We've limited our use of extra help employees and reduced our amount of supervision from the general services manager and staff there to get to that reduction. And we will be able to support that, assuming we don't have another major animal evacuation that would require the needs of that additional supervision and extra help support. So knock on wood, we don't see that this year. For personnel, we have a 1.54 increase. That's driven mainly, we've developed, finalized collective bargaining agreement solutions for our 626 union, which is in parks and waste and roads, and then our admin pro union, both new collective bargaining agreements there. For materials and services, we've done a really good job tightening our belt across the department, and so we've gotten to a 2% decrease in materials and services. For capital projects, we're looking at a little over a 4% decrease there. That's primarily because of our roads projects. We're just not able to deliver as many projects given the funding situation we're in right now. And then full-time equivalent, our staffing positions, we're looking at an overall decrease of 6. So we've actually decreased 7 and then added 1 in parks that's funded by the levy. The 7 that we've decreased are positions that were funded by the road fund and a couple of waste management. And so our strategy has been to hold positions vacant and then analyze whether we can eliminate those with this budget. So that's how we arrive at those summary numbers. And so with that, I will pass to Kier to talk about land management. Thanks. Your slides.
Okay, sir. Yeah, you can start off there. Thanks and good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Kier Miller. I'm the Land Management Division Manager. So LMD is made up of a few core program areas. We are responsible for issuing building permits, land use applications. We have a code enforcement branch. We also are responsible for on-site sanitation, as well as just general customer service. So we're the in-house permit issuance shop for the county for building and land use permits. Slide, please. So in LMD, our core focus this past year and coming into the next fiscal year has really been on just strengthening our core permit services. We've actually, despite concerns about the economy, we've seen very high permit volumes in the land management division over the last year. We've actually, this year, just to give you an idea, we've seen 5,745 building permits submitted as of today. In comparison with last year, we saw 5,322 for the whole fiscal year. So we're well above that number with 6 weeks left to go in this fiscal year. We've had our biggest July, December, April, and March and April, and May is starting off really well also. So our revenues are high, and the figure that Dan mentioned earlier about LMD resources this year being lower, that's primarily because of the potential loss of Title III federal funding, which is a program we'll talk about. And most of that revenue was pass-through revenue that we gave to residents for wildfire mitigation activities. So on the revenue side, things look good. It's more of a concern on the expenditures that we're seeing in the growing expenditures. So with these increased building permit numbers, I think it's important to note that our work over the last several years has really been to focus on bringing permit processing timelines down. That's been a big concern that Ever since I've been in land management, over 2 decades, there's been a concern about permit processing timelines, and we've really made a concerted effort over the last few years to focus on that. And as you can see, both our land use and building permits, we have been able to bring those timelines down significantly for across the board and all types of permitting, as well as sanitation permits, which isn't shown on this slide. So that's great news. That's what we've really been focused on. We are also involved in a number of other large, long-range and comprehensive planning projects that try to promote affordable housing and make lane codes simpler for the public. This current year, we've had a couple of big adjustments in our budget. The first one being the migration to a new permitting software, not a new system, but LMD has used Acela. That's our primary software product in land management for all of our permit tracking. That system has been subsidized through the state for a number of years through the State Building Codes Division. They've allowed jurisdictions to use it at very low cost. However, LMD's version has been highly customized and has a lot of great functionality that we've built in over the years. The state's no longer willing to support that. And if we were to continue on with the state, we'd lose a lot of services, a lot of our work that we've been doing to promote online permitting for the public as well. So we're actually moving off of the state model, and we're purchasing our own instance of this software, which will give us even more functionality and capability to assist the public. So there is a fairly large one-time migration cost of over $400,000. We would have seen some of those costs anyways had we stayed on the state system, because there was a lot of data migration that was occurring this year, and we would have encountered some of those costs as well. So that's one of our big expenditures. The other is the collective bargaining agreement changes that we've seen with Admin Pro. Some of our staff are in the Admin Pro, so increased expenditures for Admin Pro staff. LMD is, I think most folks know, is an enterprise fund where our budget, we're intended to be primarily supported by permit fee revenues. In reality, we've never fully been supported by permit fees, and we've been subsidized through different sources over the years: video lottery, the Title III funding I mentioned, as well as waste management tipping fees, which we receive a portion of. This current year, as you'll see more of, we're basically, we've entered in a period of structural deficiency in the LMD fund over the last several years, and this year continues that. We're looking at an $800,000 budget deficit, and again, that's primarily due to increased expenses, which we'll cover. Next slide, please. The changes in the current budget, the big one is the likelihood that we are going to sunset the Firewise program, and that has to do with a couple of things. The first one being uncertainty over revenue. We didn't know at the time of crafting this budget presentation whether or not we would have revenues available. We now know that there is more money available to apply for. However, we've gotten some new guidance on how that money can be spent, which is being reviewed by legal counsel, so that will determine whether or not we can actually continue the Firewise program. It's been an amazing program. It's been a real bright spot in LMD, which, we're typically a regulatory agency. This has been an opportunity to work with the public in more of a cooperative manner where we provide funds for wildfire mitigation. It's great to see incentive-based approaches as opposed to regulatory approaches, and this has been very helpful. The program's been in effect for over 15 years. We've assisted thousands of residents and put out over $5 million in funding out into the community for wildfire assistance. Another benefit of switching to that Acela permit software system, our current agreement with the state does not allow us to recuperate expenses for credit card fees, and we're losing about $100,000 a year in paying for credit card services. So this will allow us to recoup that if the public chooses to pay with credit card. They still have the option to pay with check or cash and not incur that fee.
Commissioner
I have a question. With the $1,000 offset, and then you said the $407,000 for the software replacement, it's not really that's not the full additional cost because we're spending money on what we have already. Do you know what the difference is?
Well, we're spending very little on what the system now.
Or on what we would have if we hadn't gone to our own system?
Yeah,
I
it's
guess.
about 30,000 a year, and then the money that we could potentially bring in would help offset. So the 400,000 is the hard cost, and then with the additional 300,000, it would, or I'm sorry, 100,000 in revenue, it would offset.
From the credit card fee. But if we stayed with the state, we'd lose functionality and we'd still have to do a cost share, and that's about 30, you said? That's what I was.
It's about 30,000.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we
But there
don't
would
recoup
be-
this.
And we wouldn't get to recoup the 100,000. And there would probably be close to $150,000 in migration costs for the data, one-time migration costs for the data.
Right, so we experienced migration data cost no matter what. That's the number I wanted, the 150. Okay, thank you.
Our expenditures are primarily being, a permit fee for service. Our expenditures are really personnel and overhead. Next slide, please. And this year, these are some of these things that we really have very little control over. Our overhead costs are growing dramatically. Our personnel costs are actually down. That's through a combination of a change in our vacancy variance and also an elimination of 1.5 FTE. So in years past, personnel have really driven expenses. This year, that's not the case. It's just the continually growing expenses that we see from all of our internal services. Again, talked about some of the big changes, potential closure of the Firewise program. We are reducing the 1.5 FTE. These are all vacant already. One of them would be that full-time Firewise personnel, and the other is currently we have 2.5 FTE for code enforcement. Our half FTE position is retiring this year with, ideally I'd have 1 or 2 more code enforcement officers, but with that person retiring and challenges with the budget, we're proposing to eliminate that half FTE code enforcement program. And then the other big change is the Acela transition, which we discussed. So in the future, obviously, controlling costs are going to be critical. We've done a 5-year forecast, and we are looking like right now we have around total reserves sitting at about 10 million. About 3 million of that is for our, our required reserves, and then we have this other fund that we've been kind of a rainy day fund if there's another big hit in the economy, which we've used and had to rely on in the past. That will slowly be drawn down under the current funding over the next 5 years, where we have right now about 7.5 million in those discretionary reserves. That will be drawn down over the next 5 years to less than 1 million if we stay on the current trajectory and we really lose that resiliency that we have. So we are looking at belt tightening as well as continuing adjustment of permit fee revenues. Last year we started a 3-year process of incremental fee adjustments, and we'll be coming to the board, the Finance and Audit Committee next week to discuss the second phase of that 3-year phase adjustment process to help address this deficit. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, subject to your questions, we'll move to Parks. Would it be okay to say questions to
Sure.
them? Sure.
Absolutely. Questions? Can do it at the end. Also.
I'll go ahead. My name is Brett Henry. I'm the Parks Division Manager. And so parks and natural areas, we're looking at, we have a total of 66 parks, a little over 4,500 acres. We have 5 campgrounds, 3 marinas, quite a bit of natural area, about 2,500 acres of the 4,500 is called natural areas. They're undeveloped parks. And, it's also really important for us to invest in water access because about 90% of our parks do border a major water body. So our 3 key initiatives, we're looking at financial sustainability, we're looking at increasing access to our parks, and we're looking at improving our infrastructure and our facilities And so with the passage of the levy in 2022, that infused, or that's going to infuse about $30 million over a 5-year period. So we've been able to make a number of investments with our infrastructure. But, the reason why I'm here and, Parks has a distressed fund is because our services have not gone up for many years. And it's basically the expenses have outpaced services. So we will be looking at doing a market fee analysis, and the results of that will tell us kind of where our rates need to be, and then we'll implement that in 2018. So we're looking at, this year, not next year, but this year we received quite a bit of a reimbursement from the 2 natural disasters, from the ice storm in February, as well as the Holiday Farm Fire. And, we, as Dan mentioned earlier, are in the process now of hiring a new lead ranger for safety and compliance. And that's whenever we poll residents, that's one thing that they're very concerned about. So we make sure that we provide that for them. And then, we're also supplanting or leveraging our resources that we have through the levy with grants. So Bureau of Land Management has been very good for us, and we've been able to do a lot of prescribed burning, fuels reduction work, and habitat restoration. And then Oregon State Marine Board has been very fruitful as well. The number of grants we've received from them as we look to improve a lot of our boat ramps. And so, we're looking at some, obviously, costs are going to go up in personnel with 2 collective bargaining agreements that went through this year. And then we're also going to be looking at another $500,000 in TLT reserves that recently the board was gracious enough to offer us to, believe it or not, we do operate and manage covered bridges. So we have 3 offline or off the road system covered bridges, and 2 of them, Curran and Stewart, are in pretty poor shape. So we need to stabilize those in a hurry. And so when you look at our revenue, we're pretty much enterprise as well. We really depend on camping fees and mortgage and a lot of the reservation fees with our different our different structures, our different pavilions and whatnot. We also have cabins, Harbor Vista. So transient lodging and car rental tax is something that we get each year. We get a percentage of. And for this next year, it's going to be up to about 1.3 million. So that's more than normal. However, we are looking at that $156,000 deficit, and again, because the expenses are outpacing the revenues, and so we've been able to balance the budget using the reserves. And so, looking forward, we're seeing kind of a trend of less park visitation. It really peaked during the COVID 2020 into 2021, and now it's kind of leveled off. And so, some of that, we're planning for it to continue to level off a little bit more. And then, the transient lodging and rental tax, that will help offset some of that. As I said earlier, we expect about $1.3 million in that revenue. And materials and services, obviously, they continue to rise and outpace. And so with our expenditures, obviously personnel is a major cost for us. We're also looking at the different indirect funds, the overheads, technology services, so forth. And maintenance agreements, let me describe that a little bit. So it's kind of under that category, but really most of the expenses are from our caretakers that really oversee our properties. And so that's considered actually as a maintenance agreement. And fleet equipment maintenance, since the levy, I think we've added another 18 trucks to our fleet, and as well as other equipment. So obviously we're seeing more costs as far as maintenance of those. And the parks levy, we're obviously spending a lot. We're trying to get our deferred maintenance where it needs to be. Back in 2021, there was a study by an engineer done, and basically $30 million behind in deferred maintenance backlog. With the levy, we expect to get through about 2/3 of that, so we should be down to about $10 to $12 million. And then with expenditures that we're going to see, they're going to go up. We're just seeing a trend of garbage hauling. Again, as I said earlier, the central services, technology services going up. Slight increase in the materials and services and the operating fund. We have two funds. We have an operating fund, which was our traditional fund, and then the levy fund, which is $295. And conversely, in the levy fund, materials and services are going down to offset some of that. And then our capital investments also are down some. That's a little misleading in a way, because because of certain projects that have been held back, we will have some technical adjustments in the budget and some more capital money. And so, as I said earlier, we want to achieve cost recovery, so we're going to conduct a market fee analysis, see where that comes in, and hope that extra revenue will help make up for those additional expenses. And we're looking at extra help that's really been reduced quite a bit. Instead of 520s, we have more 1040s. That's the number of hours that the employee works, or part-time employees that they work in a year. And of course, we were able to hire some staff with the levy funds as well. And so our FTE has gone up by 1, from 28.8 to 29.8. You say, it's 0.8, how's that like a whole person? But we do have some folks that are not full-time, so it's factored in. And then we're going to continue, with the investments to reduce that deferred maintenance, so a lot of capital investments will still be occurring. So thinking about future challenges, one of our sub-funds, Fund 217, is only designated for covered bridges, and it lacks a revenue source. And as we've seen, the lifespan of these bridges isn't as long as it should be, and obviously we haven't been able to maintain them where they need to be. So we're going to have to find something soon, or some kind of solution, maybe a legislative solution. It may be looking at some nonprofit historical groups that may want to assist as well. So that's something that actually, we got a little bit of time. The state Heritage Office is going to conduct a study of all of the covered bridges in the state, and they're going to really be looking at what are the funding sources, and do they have shortfalls, and how do they mitigate that. So I think once that study is complete in about a year, that'll be really beneficial for us to look at and see if we can, get that maintenance to where it needs to be to serve those bridges. And water and sewer capacity challenges. Obviously, we've had some major challenges. We've actually been able to really improve water and sewer at our campgrounds and our parks. But we still have 3 campgrounds, Armitage, Richardson, and Baker Bay, that are a little bit behind. So we're trying to get to capacity. If we can get to capacity, then we'll be there. So in the next couple of years, I expect us to be there. And then looking at this levy renewal coming up in 2027, that's going to be really important for us to continue to make these investments to reduce the deferred maintenance backlog.
Any questions for Brett? Thank you.
Road fund. Hi everyone, my name is Sasha Vartanian and I'm the Division Manager for Engineering and Construction Services. So we're Lane County's in-house engineering and construction division, and we plan, design, survey, acquire right-of-way, and manage construction for all Lane County road and bridge capital projects, and we provide these services to other public works divisions and partner agencies. And we're also certified to deliver federally funded projects. In addition to this, we also handle transportation operation functions, including right-of-way permits, traffic engineering, the county stormwater permit compliance program, administering Lane Code Chapter 15, and maintaining key transportation planning documents. We have 55.8 FTE and an operating budget of 12.5 million and a capital budget of 12.75 million this coming fiscal year. So our primary focus remains delivering capital projects, even as resources tighten, which you'll hear me speak to a lot throughout this presentation. In fiscal year 27, we will be constructing a Marcola pavement preservation project funded through the Red Road Fund, Good Pasture Bridge seismic and fire improvements, and the Lane County Curb Improvement Project. Those two have external funding. Transportation safety and our efforts towards zero transportation deaths continues to be a driving mission in our work and is supported by the recently adopted 2025 Transportation Safety Action Plan. New exciting modernization of our facility right-of-way permitting program. By the end of this year, we anticipate all of our right-of-way permits to have online applications and online payment options. Stormwater continues to be part of our program, and permit requirements continue to increase, and continues to be unfunded and is a strain on our road fund. We also continue to work with our partners at the cities to initiate jurisdictional transfers, which reduces our long-term maintenance costs on our 1,400 miles of roads and 425 bridges, which I'm sure Elaine will cover. And then a critical priority, again, you'll all sound like a broken record, is identifying sustainable transportation funding, given the flattened state highway fund revenues. This is going to drive us to really have to look at prioritizing our transportation assets and services as we move forward. So personnel costs, we saw an increase because of the Admin Pro collective bargaining agreement. ECS has the largest number of Admin Pro members in the county. Special districts, in 26, we removed 1 FTE from this program due to staff transition. However, we're proposing to add that back in 27 for some other large public works special district projects. And then with the implementation of a utility facility permit processing fee, we did generate roughly $150,000 in revenue, which we anticipate to see continue this coming fiscal year. We have a lot of resources because we wouldn't have a capital program without external funding. Many of those are federal and state grant programs, funding that flows through ODOT and FEMA, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. We also generate revenues for our materials testing laboratory, our permit fees, and the work we provide to our division partners. And then an ongoing transfer from the Territorial Highway Fund, primarily through the interest earned there, supports 1 FTE and our capital program, which Dan also mentioned. Secure Rural Schools is transferred into that, and without that transfer, we'd really have to look at reserves for funding capital at this point in time, so that's hugely important. So overall, resources are projected to decrease due to the State Highway Fund, which is our primary revenue source for the road fund. Operating costs obviously are rising faster than that flat revenue. The statewide funding uncertainty limits our ability to plan long-term and program future capital investments. And without intervention, this revenue trend will impact critical transportation services and safety. Not surprisingly, our highest expenditure is our capital program. And again, thanks to Secure Rural Schools, that's staying afloat this coming fiscal year. Personnel is our second largest cost, and then our overheads. So in 27, due to the Admin Pro contract, we're seeing about a $500,000 increase in personnel expenses. We've implemented vacancy control measures and will be viewing vacancy positions to determine if they need to be filled or not. And then our materials and services budgets were really held flat this year or reduced. To help cover the increasing costs in non-discretionary funds. And then capital went down because we limited the number of projects we were able to program. In order to maintain staff utilization and revenue, we're really looking to expand our portfolio of work with supporting our division partners and external agencies. We are proposing to reduce FTE by 1.5, and that's through eliminating vacant positions. The surveyor's office is proposing a $15 document recording fee increase, and that's the first adjustment since 1985. To stabilize the public land survey system, our corners preservation program. This increase will support the program's current staffing levels and avoid structural imbalance. And then again, our capital program will shrink, reducing road and bridge preservation efforts, and will continue to aggressively pursue grants. So, to wrap up, the state highway fund either needs to increase or we need to identify local solutions in order for Lane County to avoid severe reductions in transportation services and infrastructure preservation. Ongoing underinvestment will lead to roadway and bridge system degradation and higher long-term costs due to inflation and deferred maintenance. A quick summary of where we're at with the state story there, if you haven't been tracking. The transportation package was approved in this last short session, but it didn't have bipartisan support, which really led to a referendum on the May ballot. We don't anticipate that passing, but we do anticipate the 2027 state legislative session will have a transportation package. The governor's already put together a visionary group to start forming the structure there. However, we're really fast approaching the line where we'll not have the luxury of waiting and seeing. We're going to have to prioritize which transportation services and infrastructure we're going to be able to invest in coming up. So with that, I hand it to Oren.
Thank you, Sasha. For those who don't know me, I'm Oren Schumacher. I'm the Road and Bridge Maintenance Manager for Public Works. Sasha and I obviously cross paths a lot because of the wealth share of the road fund. For those who don't know, Engineering Construction Services and the Roads Division share Fund 225. We also have our tendrils in Fund 226, which is the Territorial Highway Fund. And I just did some quick math, is that you'll see my resources here at $26 million. The current state highway fund allocation was just updated this week, and it showed 37 million, just over 37 million coming to Lane County. When you combine our two, we're already well over that 52 million, but some of that money obviously is coming from some other sources. But the reason I say that is you're seeing the gap in what's currently allocated through the state highway fund versus what we actually need to do our services. So I was just going to highlight that first. This is just a quick overview of our road and bridge program here. For those who don't know, obviously our key initiative is maintaining the road and bridge system for Lane County roads. That includes such things as pavement preservation, striping and signage, bridge maintenance. Sasha touched on it. We have over 430 bridge structures in Lane County. That is huge. I was just at an OASIS conference, and some counties have 46. So that paints a picture of what we have available to us. And then vegetation management, which is all the mowing and tree care and all the things that go alongside managing roadside vegetation. I have 9 things up here that I could talk about. Knowing I have 10 minutes, I'm going to kind of short and sweet some of these. The one in the left-hand corner shows out some burned RVs. For those who don't know, road maintenance is the responsible agency to take care of the abandoned RVs currently. That may not always be the case, but currently we're the ones doing that. Just so people know, the picture for that is we are finding these almost 2 a week right now. And they range, current price we have through our contracts is $175 a lineal foot to have them towed and disposed of. And most of these RVs are in that 30+ foot range. So doing the math, it ranges between $4,000 and $7,000. If they don't have asbestos, it goes up significantly if they do. Fleet modernization is one of our huge initiatives we're looking forward to this year. Working to not only better manage our fleet, making multi-use pieces of equipment, but also changing some of our key pieces of equipment. So we have things called Gradalls, which are a type of excavator that are currently selling for around $700,000. We're finding that the way we use them is a one purpose, so we're shifting to normal excavators, which are about $275,000, that hopefully we can do multiple things with the same piece of equipment, so we're trying to streamline that. Plus, we're upgrading all to newer stuff right now, so we're at the very end of our cycle of replacing almost everything. So our last year equipment in 2007 is going to be caught up, which gives us a good picture moving forward that we're in a new place with a lot of new equipment. The one in the right corner is our chip seal program. Our key initiative obviously is to maintain chip seal mileage across our system. That's our key preservation program. And this year, again, we're forecasting a little over 60 miles to accomplish this year. Service levels I'll touch on later. The middle picture is Riverview culvert that was just reinstalled. The reason I highlighted this one is we have over 10,000 cross culverts in Lane County, some of which are fish passage. Shocking number that currently fish passage projects are averaging over $500,000 per project. Some are higher, some are just under that, but they're not cheap to install anymore, so just something for awareness. I'll cover public engagement next. The lower corner is our bridges. What we're finding is that our bridge system is old. We don't have a lot of modernized bridges in Lane County. So they're undersized for capacity of modern industry and economic movement. We're also identifying that the Federal Highway Administration changed the way that they calculate load bearing of these structures. So we're finding that structures that we had no knowledge of are becoming weight restricted, which affects forest land access, parks recreation access, all of those things. So we don't have control of that, but we're trying to find ways to streamline improving that with our partners at the federal level to prevent that from happening if we can. It's across the nation, by the way. It's not just Lane County. No, it's fine. I'll skip the crew one, but asset and data management, we'll cover it a little bit too, but that's another key initiative for us, is tracking our assets better. So budget changes this year. The first one's a good one. That's $1.5 million in revenue that we received from, yes, that is correct, the 2024 ice storm. That's the way FEMA works. 2 years later, you might see some of the money. So we're obviously in 26. We still have a remaining $1.2 million payment we're hoping to see before the end of the fiscal year, but it's sitting in OEM's lap, which is the Office of Emergency Management of the state. So we're not sure we're going to see that. We'll see it in one of the next years, hopefully this year. If not, we'll forecast it for next fiscal. We did request in Supplemental 3 this year an additional $300,000 in materials. What that's for is we have to order all of our rock ahead of time, and rock prices are going up dramatically right now. So we saw a huge increase in the rock cost for us, so we added that $300,000 request that was approved in Supplemental 3. That rock is delivered and we'll use it this year for the chip seal program. Everybody's talked about the 2 contracts that we had that were collective bargaining agreements that were concluded this year. So an increase for Admin Pro, I'm probably 10% Admin Pro, 90% 626, so the larger impact for me is 626. We have 97 FTE in our division, so we are the largest division in Public Works, so both of those contracts definitely increased our costs. We had to back pay till June, so that was a 2-point-something million, and then we have another additional $2 million moving forward, ongoing payments to those adjustments. It is a cost, but I will say it should help recruitment and retention, which has been a problem for us now for a while. And then I note fuel cost increases there. Everybody's probably paying attention to the international impacts going on. We run heavy diesel equipment. Dump trucks get 4 to 6 miles per gallon. So a lot of our sector, the timing was imperfect for us because we just start heavy construction season now. At the same time, we're seeing these escalated costs in our fuel. So we're just watching that. I'm putting it as a note of concern for us this fiscal year plus moving into next fiscal. So that paints the picture for us in terms of our resources. We are not a revenue generating division. We rely on the state highway fund to come in. We have looked at and occasionally create revenue through striping for our city partners or doing side maintenance or manufacturing for our partners. I would love to do more of that. The issue we're going to see is that with the FTE costs and likely reductions moving forward, we just don't have the ability to offer that service beyond our boundaries. And so we have counties reaching out to us all the time saying, can you please stripe our roads? Can you take care of this? And it would generate revenue, but unfortunately, we also have 1,400 miles of roads we have to stripe, so we're trying to find a good balance to that and ways we can improve that support. And then the Turner Highway Fund, that's Fund 226. For those who know, we took Territorial Highway from ODOT. I didn't take it from them. They gave it to us. In a transfer agreement with $30 million. $10 million of that was allocated towards maintenance. So we're drawing down that fund for some ongoing FTE costs, of which 6 positions are covered. So changes moving forward, some of the resources that we're asking for moving in is $800,000 for bridge repairs. I think Brett mentioned that Brett mentioned it for his stuff on the covered bridges. We do have a covered bridge roof we want to do at Parvin covered this construction season. Plus we have what's called steel section loss. So anytime a bridge piers go into the water and it's aerobic environment, it creates rust and the steel gets eroded. So we have 8 projects that we want to do to reinforce those steel section loss structures across the county. So that's what that $800,000 additional supplies request is for next cycle. And then we are reducing 3 full-time equivalent positions in the division. We have a lead worker position in our Cottage Grove shop, a operator position in our Cottage Grove shop, and then a Eugene operator position that are slated for elimination. They were vacant, so thankfully that was positions we could do without impacting direct family members. Expenditures, as 97.5 FTE, our biggest cost is our personnel, keeping things running day to day. Roadwork supplies, rock material went up this year, but we did see some promising things on the oil side. Our asphalt costs actually for the first time in, I think, a decade went down, along with our liquid oil costs. So I will note that they do have escalation clauses in there, so we're not sure exactly by the time we get it where we'll be, but that was somewhat promising. But generally, supplies are going up. Fleet and equipment maintenance. We are replacing 6 of our dump trucks this year to get them up to the current age. They age out at about 20 to 22 years, so we're replacing 6, which is big for us to do, just so people know how big that is. They're around $325,000 per truck to replace. What we did find is that there's been some improvements in fleet's accounting, tracking, and replacement fund costing, but we had a number of those pieces that were not fully funded, so we had pretty significant gaps to replace the old with the new, so it was a big impact to our budget and expenditures. Everybody's noted overheads and non-discretionary charges, so I'll just leave that where it's at. And then public safety services, we do contract with Lane County Sheriff's Office for the Waymaster, and that's around $250,000 annually for us to budget in for that support of that program. So again, we talked about the personnel reductions across the division, the 3 positions. Roadwork services, this is for the contracted work that we do, things that we cannot provide. So like oil application on our road, some of the things we have to utilize vendors for, so that cost increased with the contracts we signed this year. And then our overheads, some of which we're leading by, I think we talked about TS, $307,000 increase in our overhead costs. So again, back to the changes, we did have the 3 FTE reduction. I did talk about it on the slide 1, but the service level evaluation, one of the things that Sasha and I have talked about is we're going to take this whole next year to kind of look forward to figuring out what those key service level changes we would need to do with impacts to both of our budgets or one budget of the road fund. So we want to take this year to start trying to identify those, working with our public, having that high engagement level and the commissioners as we move forward with what those changes might look like this fiscal year plus oncoming fiscal years. And then obviously, the less we do to keep the things in good health, the more deferred maintenance we have and the higher costs. We do have some potential money. This is sat actually for over 5 years now, but we believe it'll be awarded this fiscal year. Coming forward is a $1.2 million through an HMGP grant. A lot of this was initiated on the holiday farm fire time, but now we might see the revenue this upcoming fiscal year to remove a bunch of fuel, dead trees that are been drought stressed on our county roads. So hopefully we'll have some money to do that work. Again, I noted the service level and program changes that we'll be planning through the next year, seeing where we can cut and trim and what we won't be able to provide as services across the county road system. We did and have been drawing down the road fund reserves for the last few years. The fleet reserves have been drawing down to replace that gap between new equipment prices and the old that weren't matching. So we did have a significant drawdown of our fleet reserves this year. And one of the tools we're looking at to assist us as we move forward with this reduced ability to do the services is how do we partner with our local agencies to offer both our services to them and things that they can do for us. And that includes everything from the jurisdictional transfers to our large IGA, intergovernmental agreement with the city of Eugene to manage some of their roads while they manage ours more efficiently based on shop location for both of our areas. And then funding sources, I was just at the OASIS conference and it looks like they're going to have a long session hopefully in 27 that maybe looks to solve some of these problems, but just as a realization, those monies still wouldn't come to us until likely 28, 29. So we still would have a gap even if something were successful. So we're looking at other options from grants to solve some of the gaps we have in the state highway.
All right, those are the highlights from our distressed funds and half of our divisions in public works. Hopefully it's given you a glimpse into some of the amazing work they do for the essential services and the challenges that we're facing to continue those services. And subject to your questions, that completes our route.
Questions? Did I not read in the last few months that the Secure Rural Funds, there was additional money coming from that than we've had in the years past? Is that correct, or?
You want me to speak to that? Sure. There was a 3-year renewal of Secure Rural Schools, so that does provide money to the road fund as well as the general fund. So you see those
So
in
that's
there.
in these, that's figured into this or not?
In the
Okay.
budget, yeah, it's
Okay.
providing some of the territorial highway transfer that was mentioned and then over into the road fund. So we do treat that additional money that we receive from Secure Rural Schools, if it's over the timber receipt amount, what that would be, we treat it as one time. So we're looking for projects as the perfect place to spend the
I
money.
read
Yeah.
That expires next year, though, right?
Does that expire next year? Because we're 2 years
Correct, it
back?
was, yeah, they went
That's the third
backwards,
year. Right.
yeah, to 24-25, we're in the second year, so it'll be in the 26-27 budget
Right.
as well, yeah.
So I guess now Aaron's bad time to talk about LARs, right?
It's always a bad time.
We do have a board work session scheduled for June.
Yeah, no, I'm just messing with you. Thanks.
So yeah, it was 4.6 million from the SRS in this budget.
Anything else? Well, thank you,
Might
Dan
get
and
right.
your team.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't see Lauren yet here, so you could take a short break. if
You
want.
didn't just say orange, did you?
Lauren,
Oh.
sorry. And Danielle as well.
I was like, I was right here. I
I
was
do
right next
see
to
you,
you.
yes.
We'll stand up.
You taking 10?
You wanna take a break then?
About
Sure. I messaged him to let him know we're
Okay.
running ahead, yeah, okay.
five. Oh, yeah.
He's just downstairs.
I just-
waiting, so.
Yeah.
I can step in, one of us can step
Yeah,
in.
exactly. You do what you need to do and.
Find his
Metro.
presentation. If he can find his presentation,
Yeah.
get it up.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's a little, we got some teamwork going on.
Jasper's doing that part.
Very good. Okay.
Yep, that's you.
Yep.
Yeah, you can go for that one.
You want that
Starting
one?
over.
Probably not.
Quick review.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Active parks and open spaces.
This is a
Engineering.
Getting close.
comprehension test right here.
Yeah,
We can speed read through this.
yeah. There we go.
There we go. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, Chair and committee. Lauren Blythe, Director of Operations. Tommy Gong, our county clerk, is a little bit busy preparing for Tuesday's election, so he is not going to be able to make it today. So here on behalf of the clerk's office, here's a quick overview of the major services we offer. At a high level, this team is responsible, we have 15 FTE in the clerk's office. This team is responsible for administering all federal, state, and local laws as they apply to the conduct of elections, processing voter registration, recording real property documents, issuing marriage licenses, and administering the Property Value Appeals Board. Actually, let me mention real quick. So you will hear, or we'll see here that the county records retention and management, also known as archives, that's a central service, but I wanted to mention it here. It's only 0.15 FTE, but it's a shared resource in the clerk's office, and so wanted to make sure that was mentioned. And other than marriage ceremonies, which I'll talk about a little bit later, all services provided by the clerk's office are either mandated or they provide services either directly or indirectly in support of mandated services. So here are numbers. I'll dive into this in a little bit more detail as we go through the program. What appears to be some significant change in revenue and expenses, largely due to the general election that's coming up in November. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So in the clerk's office, out of the 15 FTE, we have just shy of 8 of those folks assigned to administering elections. In elections, it's a popular topic right now, and I'm going to digress because I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to remind folks that if you haven't voted yet, you still have time. Today is E-6, which represents 6 days until the election. At this point in time, it's probably best if you haven't already cast your ballot to do so using one of our 21 drop sites. It's not too late to use the post office, but we recommend if you do so, doing it in person and requesting a postmark in person. Let's see, so in elections, so this team handles all things elections related. I didn't put the exhaustive list in here, but we've got voter registration services, candidate and measure filings, creation and proofing of ballots and distribution of the ballots, collection and processing of ballots, including signature verification and curing of troubled ballots. And troubled ballots are those where the envelope is missing a signature or has an unverifiable signature. Maybe someone signed the wrong envelope, or it couldn't be matched up easily. Maybe someone included or excluded their middle name or middle initial and doesn't match up with what's on the record. So we have 7.9 FTE here. We do bring in extra help during an election cycle. That can vary in size, whether it's a special election in an odd year versus an even year with primary and general election. We have quite a few staff that come in and help deconstruct the ballots and help us process those. So we have an elections equipment fund. So as you can imagine, with the volume of ballots that we get in, we have, I don't remember the actual number, 283,000 around registered voters in the state, in Lane County. And even on a low turnout election, we still have in the tens of dozens of thousands of ballots that we have to process. So we rely heavily on these machines that are basically perform high-speed operations on the envelopes. They do verification to make sure the envelope has the proper width or amount of content in it, that it actually has a ballot in it. It does the signature verification based on the signing of the envelope, and it actually even will open the envelope so that makes it easier for the deconstruction team. It doesn't count, but it does all of the pre-processing work on that. And matches the signature up to the Oregon Centralized Voter Registration Program. We use this fund because this equipment is also high cost. It has about a 10-year life cycle. We're due to replace the machines in 2 or 3 years. So we have 2 of them, one primary, one backup. So we use this to plan for that replacement. I think we're about 2 or 3 years out. So our other main portion of the clerk's office, aside from elections, is our recording, research, and marriage licenses team, also known as Deeds and Records. This team would have 6.8 FTE, and their primary duties consist of recording documents, real deeds and deeds of trust, and satisfaction documents. They also do issue marriage license and domestic partnership licenses, and they help citizens with more complex research projects, particularly ones that require either looking into microfilm or even hard copy documents that we have in our warehouse that over at Public Works, things that are not easily accessible or at all accessible by the public. We also perform marriage ceremonies, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. The third kind of major thing, or at least statutorily speaking, that the team, service that the team provides is the Property Value Appeals Board. Maybe I think on our documentation or term, it's Property Taxes Appeals Board. It used to be called Board of Property Tax Appeals. So this service is required by statute and allows property owners in the county to appeal the assessed value of their property. They can't appeal the taxed amount or the amount of their tax, but they can appeal the assessed value. This is so the clerk's office facilitates this process by fielding a 2 to 4 person board. The board is a board of citizens that typically have real experience in real estate property or property valuation. And the team also receives and vets the petitions for the property value appeal, and they act as the hearings clerk for those petitions. And that's as a kind of an adjunct or as a third party between the petitioner and assessment and taxation. It's a yearly process. The hearings typically occur in February into March, with petitions being accepted, I think, usually late fall. So this is, if we get the percentage FTE, this is a 0.15 or 0.25 FTE, I believe. Yeah. So we have the County Clerk Fund. There's statute that goes back into the early 2000s that allows certain recording fees or percentages of certain recording fees to go towards either funding of staffing of personnel or microfilm digitization. So right now we're using this to support 1 FTE in records. This fund is not structurally balanced. We've been spending down the carryover for some time, and in order to keep things, unless something changes in our recording fee revenue, which I'll speak to a little bit more in a minute, I think it's in FY 26-27 where we would be looking to make an ad request or looking at a service reduction. 27, 28. Thank you. It is 26, 27. Okay, some key initiatives. So I had fun putting this together and trying to think of some visual cues here. So microfilm digitization, we are in the early phases of looking at options and some solutions to digitize our microfilm. We have quite a bit of microfilm in our recording or in Deeds and Records that goes back, I don't know how far it goes back, early 70s I think it is. And the nature of that medium is that it ages out. It doesn't last forever. And so, especially the more it's accessed, the more it gets weathered and becomes brittle. And so we're looking at some options to digitize that data in those records. The state is also looking at some options. So we're hopefully we'll be able to leverage, more than just what we can find, and there'll be either other counties we can work with, or the state may even have some options. Also, the microfilm itself is becoming obsolete. Manufacturers are starting to phase that out. Equipment updates, I mentioned our sorters. Those are 2 or 3 years out. We also have our tabulation machines, the scanners that actually read and count your ballot. Those and their respective servers we're looking to be updated in this coming fiscal year. We're going to try to get it done this last year, but we ran out of time on that. Voter education, that is a constant thing we're trying to do. Oftentimes it's not high cost or high effort, but it does take coordination, and that's really just to help us make sure the public is aware of both timings of elections and processes. And it also helps us combat misinformation and disinformation that's out there. So we want that outreach, and we want to partner with other agencies to make that happen. We are doing some partnering with LCOG or Metro TV on creating some short clips, some film for ahead of the November election, but they're leveraging where we are in the election cycle for the primary to create that content and footage and put together some material. Our Dropbox, again, we have 21 Dropboxes across the county. So something worth sharing on those or around Dropbox optimization is we just recently replaced or actually upgraded 3 Dropboxes that were, as our population centers grow and adjust, they've proven to be too small, and they were a little bit out of date. They were the old Postal Service style with the snout and the hatch on the back, and so we replaced those with the beefier and more modern and more secure boxes. And we are looking in FY 26-27 to replace more, and we're considering adding a new Dropbox up the McKenzie River. I think the farthest east, the easternmost box we have is either in Mohawk, or it might even be Lively Pool. So we want to make sure folks have accessibility to those boxes. I put the marriage certificate thing up there because that's always fun to talk about, even though it's not a statutorily required service. And just to share, oftentimes we're in meetings in this room, and we get to look out here and see a ceremony going on, and always kind of puts a smile on our face. That's one of the services we really enjoy providing. Current year budget changes. So, elections are cyclical. Our odd years have the special elections, which tend to have a much lower turnout. There may even be elections where folks don't get a ballot because there's not a district or a race that is within their area. Even years we have a primary and our general, but even then our presidential years tend to be higher turnout. So we have this fluctuation of needs and costs. So going into FY 26-27, we'll have the general election this November, which will reflect higher costs than it did current fiscal year. And I may be getting ahead of myself. So I guess that's one of the things we're looking at. In terms of current year challenges, it's not new to this fiscal year, but we've seen since around 2022, once home sales kind of dipped down, they kind of plateaued, but they remain fairly stagnant at a low level. So that's resulted in a reduction of revenue for property recordings, and not sure when that's going to change. It's a function of interest rates and home sales and so many things out of our control. And wedding ceremonies, I'll touch on that a little bit more later. It's not a huge increase in revenue, but it's noteworthy, and there's potential for increasing it even beyond what we are seeing at this point. Budget resource overview. So clerk's office, across the portfolio services we provide, The main sources of sources of recording fees, marriage license fees, miscellaneous fees, which tend to be copy fees, and duplicate marriage licenses and research projects. And then we get reimbursed from districts for every election and cities in odd year elections. We would love for the state to pitch into elections, but I'm not seeing that happen anytime soon. Let's see. Budget resource changes, so back on the wedding ceremonies, again, not a statutory service, but what is new, relatively new in current fiscal year, at least starting in January, was a change in statute that allowed all elections, or all clerk's office staff who've been duly delegated to conduct wedding ceremonies. That was not the case before. Prior to this change, it was only the clerk and the clerk only that could perform that service. And so, and you can imagine during an election cycle, that was difficult to do. So our the volume of our wedding ceremonies and associated revenue really dipped down in the last few years. So, but as of January 1st, and as we've gotten more fully staffed, we've been increasing the number of those. And again, it's a blast. It's fun to walk through the halls and seeing folks engaging in that service. So we want to, once we kind of get stabilized on our staffing and folks get more trained up, we actually want to do more outreach and I'll say advertise or market this a little bit more. The wedding ceremony fee is dictated by statute. I think it's $117. So it's not a huge revenue thing. It also makes it a low barrier thing for the public to make use of that service.
Are you one of those performers of weddings, Lauren?
On occasion.
Oh, good for
I did
you.
once. I did on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
It was a pleasure.
I guess we actually had to suspend doing them for a while entirely, as I recall.
We did. Yeah, we were both without a clerk, well, I was the acting clerk
Right.
and could have done them, but didn't quite find the time.
Yeah, and before that even Dina was just
Yeah.
during the transition.
Yeah.
That's great.
So overview of our expenditures. Let's see, so the main sources of expenditures are salaries and benefits. So as you can imagine with, again, 283,000+ registered voters, the printing, the binding, the envelopes of the ballots, of the insert that goes within it, and of course the postage, which tends to go up every year, that's a big source of our costs. Extra help staffing, I mentioned earlier, in a primary and a general will bring on as many as 40 to 60 extra help. They tend to be recurring staff that have done this for years. They love their civic duty, and so it's always great to see them, and I'm starting to get to know a few of those folks now, so it's always a pleasure to have them helping out. And then we have our equipment maintenance and support. I mentioned the envelope sorting machines, which are high cost, and then the tabulation machines. Those are machines we rely on heavily, so we need to have confidence that they're in proper working order and calibrated, and so the support and maintenance on those can be a little bit costly. Expenditure changes, so I hinted at this earlier, because of the general election coming up in November, we're going up about $450K. I wish I took the time to know what that looks like relative to the general election of 2024 or even the general of 2022. Certainly as time goes by, costs across the board go up, but again, we see this cyclical pattern between a year that has a special election in fall and then a primary in spring versus a general election in fall, special in spring, just because of how the calendar and fiscal years line up. And so, and also just we're seeing across the board increases in subscriptions and support or maintenance contracts with vendors as everyone is. The general cost of business is increasing. Other than the expansion of the wedding ceremonies, no service changes and no FTE changes in the upcoming fiscal year. So future considerations, again, that voter education is kind of part of our ongoing efforts to support election security, integrity, and transparency. We're always trying to be proactive. One of the things that has been so helpful, and it's not necessarily a big cost thing, is just our social media presence, working with our PIO to make sure we are coordinating messages out there, and we're consistent with the messages coming from Secretary of State and other counties, and doing that on social media as more people rely on those as a primary source of information. We've had interest in and expressed around a property recording alert system. This is in our deeds and records area. This is a means by which a property owner could register and receive an email should there be a transaction on a property that they registered for. We're still in the research phase on this, and looking forward to bringing that to the executive team or broader team or budget team somewhere in FY 26-27. Equipment updates, I mentioned that. Again, that's ongoing. It's nothing unique or about this upcoming fiscal year. It's just the general life cycle of the equipment we rely on. Accessibility. So for us, this means two things. One, it's accessibility to voting primarily, and accessibility to our recording services. It's also digital accessibility. Citizens rely on electronic content on our website to know when dates, upcoming dates are for an election, candidate and measure information, and et cetera. So we are grateful that there's been an extension on the compliance date for that, because frankly we needed more time to get things corrected and updated so that they are more accessible. On the non-digital electronic side, we're trying, even the Dropbox we're considering at the McKinsey is itself accessibility. We want to make sure folks have as easy make it as easy as it can be on them to cast their ballot or access our services. Microfilm digitization, I mentioned that. And then archives, again, our permanent storage. So we're looking at, we've been looking at for a few years, recognize that there's a need to make sure our hard copy documents, we've got old books and documents, artifacts that go back to the 1800s that are stored in our warehouse. It's not ideal. This is old material, and we need to make sure it's preserved as long as possible. So we're continuing to look at options for more reliable and stable storage to preserve those materials as best we can. Not sure we'll have something in FY 26 or 27, but continuing that research to help bring some options forward. That's it. Any questions?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Blythe. Any questions? And I know, Jared, we have online and we can't see him, so please chime in, Jared, if you have any questions.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Lauren, two things. One, the property transaction alert, is that the fraud prevention, basically, that I know a constituent reached out and I forwarded to you, and I think Commissioner Buck did as well. Is that what that is, like alerting people so that if somebody has somehow gotten into their property records and is doing something, wasn't that what that was? It was an alert for the purpose of that alert?
It is, but it's at least for the tool or the option that we may have available to us. It's not a prevention.
Right. No, it's when something has happened to alert someone. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could consider it preventative in the sense that it gives the property owner the ability to react to something before time has passed or before other things happen. But it is a reactionary response to an event that occurs.
Right. It's like when there's a fraudulent charge on your credit card.
Right.
Bank calls you. Okay. Yeah. And then the other is on the equipment upgrades for elections, the drop boxes. I know the newer ones. We're also doing more around security and monitoring the boxes.
Yeah.
But that's undoubtedly more expensive to have a newer reinforced box with a camera than the old postal box. So is that factored in, and how do we have an ongoing plan to have more security at more drop sites over time?
We do. The enhanced security we were able to implement in the last fiscal year came by way of a grant. And so that was very helpful for us to expand video or cameras and have a video presence for our some of our drop sites. So outside of a grant, we don't have any plans to do that, but we do actively look for in other grants or other funding opportunities for those.
And the fire suppression, or what was that? There was something, I mean, the more vandalism and fire resistance.
Right. So the security we get with the cameras is separate from the boxes themselves.
Okay.
And part of the cameras is dependent upon locale and internet accessibility. It is standard issue with drop boxes nowadays to have fire suppression, and they are, I don't remember the gauge, it's 3/16 if it's not a 1/4 inch metal. I mean, they're stout, and as far as I know, they all come with fire suppression.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Next on our agenda is any committee business.
Nothing new from staff, maybe just, we're working on answers to questions, so we have received a couple more, so you'll see those hopefully soon, waiting on minutes, so we expect to have materials for you soon.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other business? I think we will adjourn at 3:46. Thank you all. We are back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 1:30 to 4:45.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks.